business framework for IT, as they say, they have process objectives. So it moves away from mere controls to a higher level of processes. So it addresses a slightly higher governance requirement, right? But it does have controls. The number of standards building organizations are far more, I think, than even the standards using organization, right? That's how it is going. And if you really see this, the organization gets confused. What do we adopt? Believe me, no standard you can adopt as it is. That's something we'll understand. Whatever is your neighbor's way of looking at things may be good, but does not apply to you as it is, right? So one very basic requirement with looking at a standard is look at it in terms of a best practice, take what's necessary and suits your organization, don't overeat. Because there is a tendency saying that, oh, let's move and adopt COBIT 100% across the enterprise. It will never work. It is a very clear disaster recipe. You're trying to roll out COBIT across all processes and across all locations. Believe me, COBIT, you can't even say the word next time in an organization again. Because the implementation was flawed. It happens with ERP implementations, right? As you know, 60% of ERP implementations worldwide are a failure, either partial or complete. Why? Is a product a failure? Not necessary. The way you looked at and implemented the product, that's where the failure is. You can't eat it whole. So that's where it tries to bring in that. Then, it enables addressing all the perspectives. For example, just to give you one example of this, it addresses culture as an issue. Does culture really matter? As we saw that earlier, it does matter. So it addresses culture. So it brings a complete holistic approach to things and separates the role of governance and management. There was a lot of haziness about what is governance, what is management. The top management sitting there in the board is there as the captain of the ship. They just command. Well, all else needs to happen in terms of the implementation. So that is where they clearly defined this layer as the EDM layer. Evaluate. You're evaluating the course continuously. When you're, captaining a ship, you're continuously evaluating the course, and you're directing, and you're monitoring. So once you're evaluating the course, you say, this is my destination, this is the course to take, and you say, this is what needs to get done. So the directions are given, but you are also checking back to see, are they getting done? So the monitor comes in there. So that is where this brought in that role, wherein they are not the do's. The actually to do happens at the management layer. Okay, this is just a generic assurance approach, wherein you need to very clearly understand what is the subject matter of audit, what is the suitable criteria that we can choose, what is the process of audit, and what do we need to conclude. So any of the audits, that's what we're trying to do. But when you start applying COBIT 5, it clearly tells you, okay, what should I be speaking? You start seeing your report at the time of your planning. And that's very important. So the idea is gain approach of the IT environment in relation to the business environment and audit objective. Start planning your audit. Assess inherent risks and controls relative to the audit objective. Identify the IT controls for testing and the substantive testing. That is how much of can you rely upon that, the extent of reliance. Perform IT controls testing with regard to design and operating effectiveness, which includes various things. Like I just given some examples here. It could be at the application layer, it could be at the IT general controls or governance controls. You could do all that and report and follow up. Typical general auditing strategy, right? Now, when you start moving ahead with this, how do you now start using this in terms of COBIT? You're looking at using this aspect called the goals cascade. Now, I'm going to use certain COBIT terminologies, but let me tell you, these are all very simple common sense items, right? So if you start reading the COBIT, which is now the COBIT 5, which is a basic business framework, is a much shorter document as compared to 4.1. So that's a good thing about it. And it is much more readable. It makes a lot of business sense. So you can start reading through that, and that's where it tells you there's a goals cascade. What does goals cascade mean? You said somebody who is here captaining the ship. What is the goal that he has seen in terms of encompassing all the stakeholders? So we start looking at that, and it starts percolating right down into every layer of the management, the executive management, the operational management, down up to the transactional management layer, it starts percolating. So once we start doing that, you see that the vision is not lost. So you have the vision completely maintained right throughout. Then the second aspect, which is the principle of covering end-to-end, as we said, it has governance enablers, and it also clearly defines that what governance need to do and what are their roles. It also says, okay, I got a standards problem. I am required to be an ISO 27001. My partner needs a Six Sigma from me, right? There is a requirement of, let us say, an SAS 70, right? You could have so many, of the requirements which are mandated, which could be mandated not by law, but your relationships. In that case, can we still use COBIT? Yes. That's why COBIT has always been referred to as the umbrella standard. It's rather a framework, I would say, not exactly a standard is a good word to use. Because what it can do is, it builds in this, the basic skeleton of how to look at things. And then you can simply start plugging in, plug and play, each of those components. For example, there is the DSS5, which deals with maintaining system security. Now, it doesn't talk about the nuts and bolts of information security. What you could do, you can simply take the ISO 27000 framework and simply map it and put it there. It will deliver not only ISO 27001, but it will also deliver to the larger objective of ensuring that ISO 27001 does not merely stay a certification initiative, but goes to a governance initiative. And that way, you get a better return on investment. Right? So that's where it tries to bring in that integrator framework, as they say. And for holistic approach, as I said, there are something called the COBIT 5 enablers and the dimensions of these enablers. And from separating the governance and the management model, you have the process reference model and the role clarity. So let's go into quickly some of them so that I'll just take time to. So the goals cascade, what does it happen? If you clearly see, whatever I just said, it clearly understands that there are stakeholders and the stakeholders have drivers. They influence the stakeholder needs. Now, this is where COBIT again makes a clear difference. It clearly categorizes in terms of what are the benefits that are expected, what are that needs to be done in terms of risk optimization. As I said, you don't go to a bank and ask them if you're safe. That's something you got to do anyway, right? And what are the resource optimization? I have to balance cost and value continuously. And then you go down and that starts percolating down, cascades into the enterprise goals. And that cascades into the IT goals, and that further cascades into the enabler roles. So you have a holistic approach when you start really going ahead doing that. So this helps you to do in terms of understanding the audit objective, identify. I already spoken about this, the stakeholders, what are their expectations and pain areas, right? And it helps you to scope the audit universe. It helps you to also look at the IT universe and look at the extent of automation, look at the landscape, and they go down right up to understanding what needs to be included in the scope. Then, how do you go about planning your audit using COBIT 5? Again, identifying governance enablers for IT and linkages to management roles that are essential to achieve the enterprise goals. Again, we are talking about taking, let us say, the scope of, I have a problem with email security. You are actually enlarging that in terms of messaging security. So you want to really look at the entire phenomenon of how do this information pockets, which are considered extremely secure, get onto the messaging systems and travel outside the enterprise. So now you understand, okay, where is the source of these messaging systems? It could be from a file server, wherein I have a desktop which saves it onto a file network file folder, right? And it parks my sensitive file there. But the important thing is to identify what is sensitive and what cannot cross the boundaries of my organization. So you see the difference? If I simply started addressing mail server, it may not really help. You'll do a technology audit. But once you start doing that, you now look at the complete requirement of reclassifying spaces in which I will store certain sensitive objects. And once you start doing that, you may even run a separate secure mail system which is very restricted. So which will ultimately meet the governance objective. So that is where it helps you in terms of mapping, navigating, getting the integrated view, identifying the enabling processes, identifying the necessary enablers that will ensure that the controls will work using COBIT 5 enablers. So I've been talking about enabler. What is this enabler? Believe me, to whatever extent of reading I have done now, This typically points to factors which fail to achieve sustainable control. The problem with us, whenever we audit, the problem has been, okay, you don't have a recurrence for some time on a compliance and it starts back again after some time. So there seems to be a discipline and a consistency issue. So unless and until you automate it or you do something about it, it starts getting into a different direction. How do we address that? So what COBIT says is, you need to look at what enables the robustness of these processes. So it starts with defining first the need for the principles, the policies and the frameworks which will drive whatever you are looking at. For example, if I am looking at an encryption system in my organization, I want to run a PKI, it says first sit down and put this in place, which will again cascade back, roll up to your enterprise objectives. So you are aligning straight away the principles with your alignment right from the stakeholder values right up to the IT level. Once you do that, define the processes. So you have set out the foundational elements, now define the processes. You have well-defined processes which have the workflow, which have the process flow, which clearly say this is the sequence of activities to achieve those various process objectives and sub-process objectives. So that's where it deals with the processes. And then, who will do it? That's a big problem, because in most organizations you have a very well laid out policy document, but it does not really clearly specify who will do it. In fact, I have seen in many cases, the ISO 27001 policy document could be a standalone document which refers to various organization roles, which is never connected to your larger organization structure. So it is something which will satisfy that perspective, but actually doesn't work. So it says plug them into those. That's where we saw the RASI. Yeah? And then it also asks you to consider the culture, ethics, and behavior. In IIA, we call it as the tone at the top. So the Institute of Internal Audit has said, look, there has to be demonstrative leadership. So it talks about that, and it also says assess your, because in implementing whatever of these frameworks, one thing which fails, to somebody who discussed the last event, I think, the last session, he said, all this is fine. Is there a process to change mindsets? Because all this we can go about, then people just are resistant to change. They have their own ideas about things. You can't change them. They understand, mind you. They are intellectually okay. But they will not subscribe to your idea. Right? So how do we get through that? So that, it has been addressed very beautifully here. Then it talks about getting into the details of understanding information, which talks about how do you go about putting information in such a manner that you can discuss it from the governance perspectives. Then builds in the services, infrastructure, and the applications, which is typically, if I have to run an identity management system, I need to have a service infrastructure to run it. And it is sometimes a big, not included in the budget in the organization, and it fails. Because I just allocated some existing help desk staff to do up all this. They don't have the perspective. They have done something, messed it up. So all that happens. So it clearly says define that service, infrastructure, applications, and enable people, skills and competence. So that's what it talks about. So for your audit performance, using the process reference model and the enabling processes, it tells you clearly what are the inputs, outputs to the process under audit, how to identify the gaps in the process using process maps, which activities to audit and what to audit in each of those activities, how to objectively evaluate effectiveness in terms of parameters that will speak for themselves, objective, not subjective, and then how to identify who has gone wrong where, fix the responsibilities, and then also tells you how to make recommendations. So this is what we can achieve using COBIT 5. So what does it do? I'm just giving you COBIT 5 here. Just one quick example. You remember the goals cascade? These are templates which are readily available for use in the downloadable documents. For example, let us say you see this is built on the Jim Kaplan's balanced scorecard theory. It divides it into the balanced scorecard, the business balance scorecard, the perspectives of financial, customer, internal, and learning. And here it discusses the enterprise goals. Right? Let me take one of them. Okay, let me say I have a problem with compliance with external laws and regulations. Okay, so so what's my perspective of addressing? Is optimizing my risk. What does it go? It also defines the IT goals. So here we saw the enterprise goals. Here it addresses the IT goals. And here what you could do is, this is a mapping. Whatever the enterprise goals you saw are listed here. The IT goals are listed here. Now what did we choose? Compliance with laws and regulations. Let me just highlight it. So I'm highlighting compliance with laws and regulations. Now my job is to find out which are the relevant IT goals. The P indicates a primary and S indicates the secondary relationship. So let me look at the primary ones. I see two clearly coming out here. One is IT compliance, support for the business compliance with the external laws and regulations. Very fair, right? Then you also have security of information, processing infrastructure and application. You get that? Do you see that? So it comes in as two primary goals identified here. What do I do next? So I have identified, okay, this is here. Then I go on to, okay, I have identified the IT goals. I have also identified which of these IT goals are supporting the business goals, right? Now my next job is, how do you identify which processes are relevant now? So if you see, this is what you had earlier in 4.1, the flower model. Yeah, the round. Yeah, POAIDS. Now it transformed to this. So they brought it as a square, right? So if you see, this is the addition here, EDM, evaluate, direct and monitor. And as you see, it has got 5 sub-processes here. And then you start with the management role, which comes in here, which is align, plan, organize, APO, build, acquire, implement, BAI, deliver service and support, DSS, and monitor, evaluate, and assess, which is MEA. And each of them, you see, it has been reorganized significantly, right? And each of them further has a very detailed explanation about what are the activities which needs to happen, which we'll see. Okay. So now you remember what did we do? We were looking at, item number 2 and 10, right? If you look at 2 and 10, you're looking at 2, right? And you're looking at 10. So I'm identifying that there is a requirement with regard to, this being primary here, right? And then when I look at 10, I find this being primary. So I have identified 2 of the processes. So I got EDM 3 and APO 01, right? So I have very clear alignment here. For my IT goal achieving number 2, I need to achieve, I showed an example there, I just mapped it here. I need to achieve an APO 1, 12 and 13, BAI number 10, DS 5 and MEA 2 and 3. And for achieving goal 10, I need to look at EDM 3, APO 3, 12, 13 and BI 6. Does it make sense? No problem? Okay. So what do? I now map it saying, okay, which are, because I'm just eliminating redundancies. You see the 13, 13, 12, 12 here? I'm eliminating redundancies. This black means it's not available because there are only 5, right? The red means it's not required us for our objective now, right? So we simply take and start looking at these business process, processes and sub-processes to start developing our audit program. So what do? This is how a standard process document template looks like. For those of you who have not attended COBIT, let me quickly explain. If you see this here, there's a process description which briefly describes, as it was even earlier, what is this process all about. Then it has a process purpose statement. This is where it is, what goal which this process achieve for you. Right? So if you really look at this, we are looking at manage security services. What will it do for me? Minimize the business impact of operational information security vulnerabilities and incidents. Is this IT language or business language? Is it IT language or business language? It's business language, isn't it? It's simply saying minimize the business impact of operational information security vulnerabilities and incidents. Then further, it says the process supports the achievement of the set of primary IT related goals, which is, it clearly says, you remember we mapped it there. It says this process, what all does it support? We chose 2, but it also supports 4 and 10. But our interest is now 2 and 10, right? So we will take these metrics. See, please see this. I want to let us look at IT compliance and support for business compliance with external laws and regulations. How to measure It goes above and tells you cost of IT non-compliance, including settlements, fines, and the impact of reputational loss. Right? It also goes to tell you number of IT-related non-compliance issues reported to the board, number of non-compliance issues related to the contractual agreements, coverage of the compliance assessment. You see the last one? First three, if you see, are pretty impactful. Right? The last one is saying how many assessments are you performing? So it's also looking at the rigor of the process. Right? So similarly, you can go through this. Then you also have, we saw this as the IT goal level metrics. You also have the, earlier we had the KGI and the KPI, the key goal indicator or the business outcomes, and the key performance indicator or the performance indicators, right? So here it is typically the same here. Here we start looking at the process goal indicators. I'm just taking one. Networks and communication security meets business needs. How do I measure it in terms of the process goals? Number of vulnerabilities discovered, number of, for example, in terms of the processes as an enabler. You saw this? Process is a enabler. It says, first of all, it says define who are your internal, external stakeholders who will be interested in this particular process. Okay. Then we are talking about process for malware implementation, information security service. Okay. Then goals. Define in terms of the intrinsic quality of the goals, what they should achieve intrinsically. Contextual quality. What is contextual quality? I am into a regulated segment and malware is stipulated, let us say, under one of the guidelines by the controlling regulator. I will include it here. So contextual quality and accessibility and security. Then it also defines, it says don't stop here. You have to define it right across the process life cycle. Right from the process being planned, process being designed, process being built, acquired, created, implemented, used, operated, evaluated, monitored, updated, and disposed. What does this mean? For example, malware, let us say malware patch implementation. It's one process I need to follow. Let's say it says don't simply just leave it, patch applied, finished. No. When you're pulling out a version, it goes up right up to its retirement. You want to dispose it off, make sure when you're disposing it, it follows the principles. So it has a very detailed, insight into the life cycle aspects. And it also says don't stop here. You can look at good practices. So you can define that in terms of, identify work products, input, outputs, etc. And it also says how it should lend. These are the enabler performance management. How do I measure them? Is there issue with my stakeholders with regard to process failure? For example, there was a breach which resulted in, let us say, one of the critical public websites coming down, right? The problem was the patch did not get applied. Okay, so you clearly see, now I'm able to relate to where did it fail? It failed at the design level, let us say, because the patch was such, because there was another patch to the operating system applied, so this patch failed. So there's a design issue, which means I have not had an opportunity to provide for staging of patches. Regression staging. That is, there is an operating system patch which is being applied, right? When the operating system patch is applied, I need to test it whether my antivirus will fail. So it talks about that level and says, okay, try to do that. Then, are enabler goals achieved? Whatever set are the process goals you set for this, are they being achieved? Is the life cycle properly managed? So you can go about auditing each and every aspect, right? Are good practices applied? You don't stop with just, the basic practices, but you also extend beyond that. Metrics for achievement of each of these, what we call as the lag indicators, and the nothing but the business outcomes and the KPIs, right, for the process level, right? Yes, sir? No, what happened is I have not provided that a patch should be staged when it is an operating system patch, including in my staging environment the antivirus to see if it fails. The problem has happened because the operating system patch was there, hence there was something in the operating system patch which made my antivirus fail. If I had provided for the control, saying that right at the time of my design, when I'm deploying this, it should be essential that it is first staged in the environment with the sociability testing, and then only it should be a rollout, it would have solved the problem. So that's it. Okay. So what is happening is, this is yet a publication to come in, which is called as a COBIT 5. Here you see the difference, enabling information. This is going to provide, it is not yet published, it is still under development, but this is going to provide details of how to go about auditing the individual processes. Okay? And yeah. Very good point. Very good point. When you think as an auditor, do you think as a generic auditor or with the audit objective at hand? So when you have the audit objective, if you can relate to what these address, you can straight away take it. For example, there is, in India, let me tell you, they have come out with an India level draft using COBIT for addressing privacy, which is called this, which is called as the sensitive, securing sensitive personal data or information. I would urge all of you, even if you are in different countries, to download this. Why? Because it addresses the privacy perspective of how to use COBIT there. So if you are doing a privacy audit, you don't have to look through the entire damn thing. You just download this, use this. But you are only seeing a few publications here. The way that it is looking at, we could have maybe COBIT 5 applied in IT for banking, COBIT 5 applied in banking for... It was a shortcoming earlier. Yeah, yeah. That's what. Yeah, I think my time is up. Okay. So, now, having said that, let us look at the complexity. You remember, yesterday morning we were looking at the Internet of Things. Your car talking to another car, right? Your fridge talking to whatever, your mobile phone or whatever, right? Can you imagine the security dimensions of that whenever we reach there? It's mind-boggling, because if you look at what Gartner has to say on VNUIT into embedded systems, isn't it? So the takeaways, COBIT 5 lends to a more relevant and clarity in the scoping in IT audits. Do you feel that's happened? Do you feel there is a way to do that? Yeah? Okay. The second, enhances better understanding of business and IT perspectives. If you are now going to talk to the management, you first simply take this and then start relating to what they want, right? You can do that now? Okay. Then, lends more to the objectivity in audits. Why? Because now we have got more discrete as compared to earlier. The process assessment model, the metrics, etc. lend to more of objectivity. Supports identification of root causes and sustainable process remediations. Enabler? Yes, enabler is enabled to do that. Then encourages a more acceptable process assessment model and capability model. Incidentally, the process assessment model is based on the ISO model. So there is obviously more acceptability around it, and audits become more business focused, hence get more attention. One thing is for sure, there is a huge career waiting for information systems auditors. That's no doubt. And where it will drive the more in the industry better is if we start using these kind of frameworks. When I say using, you try to adapt them to the way of your working and your internal audit methodology or your external audit, whatever that you already have, and you start plugging that. Already you will find that you are having several things there if you are having a framework. You just need to enforce it and strengthen it. I am sure we will be able to be seen as value deliverers right at the board level. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Thank you so much for your attention. If there are any questions, I will be happy to take. ID here, you can always send it to me.
Thank you, Vittal, for such a nice session. There will be a tea break for 10 minutes only, and then we again assemble here. We have a last session by Mr. Avinash Kadam.
Yeah, so good. Thanks for... okay. Thanks for showing that sort of determination and dedication. Now, after having gone through COBIT 5 so extensively, what is it that we are going to see something new in COBIT 5 for information security? Right? Now, you might have seen that slide. To say that to my colleagues, have you understood the business processes of this organization? They said, sir, we have got an assignment to do the entire project in 3 months. And do you want us to go through the business processes, which will take us another 6 months, and client is not going to pay for that? So we are straightway going through the risk assessment and we are going to have the big matrix of the risk. We are going to get that confirmed by the top management, and once we identify the risk, we are straightway going ahead with implementing all those controls that we identified. We are not going to look at the business processes. We will just accept whatever client is telling us. When you implement COBIT 5 for information security, you are taking a different view. Earlier, whenever we talked of information security in COBIT, we had just 2 or 3